Hello everyone. This I'm not gonna, it's not a new discovery because people have known about this in horticulture for a long time. But for me, it's a new discovery and it's kind of eye-opening actually. I'll just give a quick background. I was watching a video on bonsais and they're always talking about soil and soil particles and what's best for bonsais. And they mentioned something called cation exchange capacity, which is basically the soil or media's potential and how much nutrient it can hold. And that got me to thinking because they started going through some values for these things, and it's actually pretty interesting, and it makes a lot of sense of with why we're having problems with nutrient absorption, why we're finding that our plants are declining after a while because they're turning acidic and this and that. So here I have some papers of just some values that I kind of found. You can always go online too and just do some research yourself, but this is kind of like the main thing, just like a gist of it, that I want to show you. So in this process, basically everything that we're using for media, soil, lava, sand, perlite, sphagnum, bark, all has the potential to hold nutrient or not hold nutrient. So in this cation exchange, there's cations and anions. Cations are positively charged particles, and in this group, these particles are aluminum, hydrogen, calcium, magnesium, iron, also some smaller nutrients, strontium, zinc, manganese, molybdenum, sodium, potassium, and ammonium. Now I have them listed here from how they bond to the soil or media in strongest to weakest. So that means that when they create this bond to your soil and waiting for absorption from the plant, this means what is more likely to be given up, which is mainly fertilizer, or what likes to stay attached to the particle, the soil particle, hydrogen, aluminum, so on and so forth. And also we have anions, which are negatively charged particles, and they also are in our mixes, and them elements are sulfur, phosphorus, chlorine, and nitrate. Now these things basically kind of stay in suspension inside the soil or media or water or whatever kind of situation you're growing in. Now this stuff becomes more important later on once you hear what I have to say about basically the capacity levels. So for perlite, we have a capacity level of 0 to 1, and this is all in milligrams per 100 grams. It has a pH generally of 6.5 to 7, and it has low water retention. Sand and pea gravel, 1 to 3.5 milligrams per 100 grams, pH of 7, low water retention. Leca. Some values I found, I kind of like just went with the one from the Leca place. It said 0.85, so that's what I'm going to use, and it has a value of pH anywhere from 6.8 to 7. Its water retention is medium. Lava has a potential to hold 10 to 30 milligrams per 100 grams, and pH of 6.5 to 7.9, water retention medium. Let's just skip to bark and sphagnum, other things that we kind of use in orchid growing. Basically, pine bark has a nutrient retention value of 53 to 100. Its pH could be 4 to 5, and it has medium to high water retention. Sphagnum moss has a CEC of 110 to anywhere to 200, and that has a pH level of 4 to 5, and that has high water retention. And then let's do charcoal. That has a value greater than 200, and it has a pH anywhere from 6.7 to 9.7, and it has a low water retention. So now this will make a little more sense when I show you this little diagram here. Let me see if I can get both in focus. But this is my little picture of a piece of sphagnum moss. Now on this sphagnum moss, these are negative signs, these black dashes, representative of all the recepting areas where these elements can attach to. So hydrogen, magnesium. Now remember, things like hydrogen want to attach quickly and stay on there strongly, whereas like nutrient like NH4, which is the ammonium, which is the fertilizing part, your nitrogen particles, they have the weakest bond, so they're more available to your plant. And things like nitrate, phosphorus, and sulfur, they have negatives, so they are basically repulsed. Like a magnet, the opposites attract. They don't make bonds. So you can see moss has a lot of potential to get a lot of hydrogen to make it acidic. Bark, less areas. Rock, less. Lava, less. Leca, less. So on and so forth. Hydroponic and water culture is the only one that basically you're in control of. Because if you have a neutral water, a pH of 7, you have basically the ability to have both acids and bases in or these elements available to kind of interact with the plant, until you change the pH to either more acidic for the plant to absorb, or maybe more basic, the opposite, for whatever reason. That's how you can get the reactions that you're looking for. So then I say, what is an acid? Acid is the extra presence of hydrogen atom in a compound. What is a base? Extra presence of a hydroxide molecule in a compound, a OH. So now this is important when it just kind of dawned on me how we're all doing this pH meter, checking our waters, adjusting the pH. Now that is good for hydroponics. But if you really think about it, if you're growing in sphagnum moss or on a mount with sphagnum moss or in bark, this substance already has a low pH, and now you're adding your fertilizer, which already has hydrogen in it because it's water. There's water. You're using water. Also, the compounds in the fertilizer have hydrogen too. If you think about it, if you add more acid to the mixture, you're adding more hydrogen cations, which then if we look back at this diagram here, these spaces here are gonna react with that quickly because hydrogen wants to bond and bond fast. So we're actually going to be turning our media more acidic and taking up these recepting places with these hydrogen atoms instead of our fertilizing atoms. So that might be something to think about. Now, this is just my interpretation. Maybe I'm just opening this up for a chat to talk. This is my orchid association or my orchid society. You guys here on YouTube, I don't really go to a society here where I'm at. So this is where I get to talk with you guys and, discuss and just run ideas through and things like that. So, and the same for bases. Obviously, a base is not going to bond to this because it's a negative recepting area, and that's a negative charge. But that's why our pots don't turn more alkaline, because they aren't holding on. Our pots turn more acidic because, in this case, it has a lot of recepting areas to turn more acidic. You never really hear of someone saying, my semi-hydro something turn really acidic because of the LICA, because the LICA has very little recepting areas for that hydrogen molecule or atom to attach to the LICA to turn it acidic. But it also has very little area for the nutrients to attach to and be made available for plants. But that's why we grow it. That's why it's called semi-hydro, because that's why your nutrient solution has to have, that's why the roots can sit in the nutrient solution, because it needs to be there to be made available for the plant. You don't see anyone growing in semi-hydro plants that don't have some kind of reservoir or don't have water constantly flowing over it. That's how the nutrient is delivered. The LICA will never absorb nutrient to make it available to plants because it has a low CEC. Same with perlite, same with sand. And as we go up, lava, whatever, it has a potential to get slightly more acidic, but nothing to an extreme where you're going to have plant roots burn and probably die back, because it doesn't have that potential to hold the hydrogen atoms as moss does, as bark does, as peat moss, as charcoal. So it's just something to think about. I mean, let me know. Maybe I'm wrong, but this is just something I just kind of, like I said, came upon. It's nothing new to the horticulture world, but to us, I'm going to say novice. Even though I've been doing this for 4 something years or more, I've always had gardens and plants, but never really dove into it like this because I didn't really ask. But now that I see so many people on YouTube talking about nutrients and nutrient solutions and pHs and parts per million and all this and that, it kind of made me ask myself some questions. So in this process of us watering and build up and stuff, I've seen Miss Orchid Girl do things on like about efflorescence and mineral buildup, salt buildup. I hear people always talking about the mounds, how they flush them. And yeah, flushing is good, yes, because it does remove excess. But if you really think about it, if something is chemically bonded to something, generally water is not going to flush it out. And if it has a strong bond, you're not really flushing out your acidity, you're flushing out your nutrient. So the acidity, I believe, is what's burning the root, not really the nutrient. Now we have 3 modes of how nutrients are delivered. One is interception, which is direct contact of elements with roots. And some of the nutrients affected by this are calcium, magnesium, zinc, and others to be named. There's mass flow, which is classified as the bulk movement of water through a growing media, and also including evaporation. Things affected by this are nitrate, calcium, magnesium, sulfur, copper, and manganese. If you think about what I said earlier, is sulfur has a negative charge, so it's not going to connect with your growing media. That's why in mass flow, that's one of the ways that you deliver the nutrient, because it's never just going to sit there waiting for microorganisms or your roots to come in contact with if it hasn't bonded, because it's not going to bond unless you have positively charged particles of media for it to hold on to, which in this case I'm not aware of any. And then the last is diffusion, and this is the movement of high concentrations of salts to lower concentrated areas. Now, one example, I heard John Greco just talking about Osmocote, and that's kind of an example of that. That's basically, if you look at the first part of the word, osmo, in reference to osmosis. In order for Osmocote to work, it has to get moist. If you put Osmocote in a dry cup and a plant in a dry cup, nothing's going to happen. Or in a dry pot, nothing's going to happen. It's the process of osmosis that exchanges the salts from the particle to the media. So people that are growing in semi-hydro and put Osmocote in there, you're basically allowing that reaction to speed up, because it's letting that moisture into that particle to do the exchanging. If you let your pot dry out more as if it was in bark, then that particle dries and can no longer release the salts or the fertilizing solution into your mix. So that's why people might be seeing some adverse effects using Osmocote in a semi-hydro situation, because it's meant as a slow release fertilizer. But if you have the Osmocote sitting in water, then it's no longer acting as a slow release. It's dissolving, basically, which is speeding up the reaction. So basically, Osmocote is just a hard fertilizer that is meant to slowly dissolve as it continually gets wet. So I guess that's kind of my little talk. Please like and subscribe, watch and share. Leave comments, ask me questions, have a discussion with me. I'll probably be doing some more videos on this as I figure things out and just keep going over this. But let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Bye.